Hey, welcome back, everyone. It is your boy, the Crooked Commish. Thank you for tuning in to the Chicago Clubhouse Network, here where we talk all Chicago sports. We have our main show tomorrow night, and we have a special guest, a Chicago barber, coming on, so check that out. That is 8 o'clock Central. So we also have our baseball show on Thursday night. It's called Plunked with Emilio and Kristen. So they talk about Chicago Cubs baseball and White Sox baseball. Now this is the All-Star break there. I'm not sure where they're going to go. They're probably going to talk about the Cubs being sellers and definitely the White Sox being sellers. But now that that's out of the way, like I said, thank you for joining us. We're going to talk some fantasy football here. Slight change of plans. We at first had a guest supposed to come on with us from another fantasy show, and but real life stuff happened. Work came up, so we're going to postpone that, push that back a week, put that on the back stove, and hopefully next week we can get to that. And so this week we decided, let's just continue on with the NFC quarterbacks and talk about which one of those are going to be fantasy relevant. Got to be honest with you, though, the list isn't quite as long as it was on the NFC side. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and kick the show off. Hey, you're still with us. Great. So, like I said, thank you, everyone. I hope you had a good weekend. I know I did. Had some R&R. Took a little trip out of town with some friends and dipped into the water since it was like 115 where we were at. So, but happy that you're all with us. Crazy Ace, how you doing, my friend? Good to see that you're still doing well. And let's see, yeah, today we are going to talk some fantasy football. So let me go ahead and bring in my co-host. You guys know him by now. You've seen his ugly mug around this network a few times now. So he's has his name on there as Mouth, but he wants it to be known that he is the Mouth.
The fucking Mouth.
Yeah, no, we have a foul mouth C on the Tuesday show. So
no, well, it's different. It's different. That's why I'm the fucking Mouth. Okay, get that shit. They put that THE in that shit. These people.
Well, we'll fix that in the chat. We'll fix that in the chat too.
All right. Yeah, how
was your weekend? Did you have a good one?
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. I mean, came back a little sore because walk around the sand, a little bit more. A little bit older, trying to go uphill in the sand isn't the same as when you're 20s, as when you're your 40s. But it's all good. Today at work kind of sucks, but it was a good weekend. It was a good weekend.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So, who's winning in the home run derby back there? I see you checking it out.
Yeah, well, that's right now. Got Bowman and Ramirez leading the first round. I like to keep mixing it up. Like you talk about football, but I had hockey behind me. I got baseball behind me. Hopefully pretty soon we're gonna have football behind me. So need that football stuff. Some preseasons, whatever's going on. So it's time. It's time. It's time. It's fucking time. I'm so jacked. So jacked. So Jack, let's go.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. Like I said, it's August 1st is the first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game with the Bears and
That is that
the
is literally 2 weeks
Texans.
away. 2 weeks away.
Yeah,
I cannot
so
wait.
once training
Like a kid
camp
on
gets
Christmas.
opened,
I'm
we're
telling
gonna
you.
start hearing a lot more news.
Kid and Christmas. Kid and Christmas. Come on, let's go.
So with that being said, let's continue off where we left off last week. Last week we talked about the AFC QBs and which ones were fantasy relevant and which ones were maybe not even worth drafting at all. So this week, let's start off with the NFC East quarterbacks. There's really only three that are somewhat intriguing or worth mentioning. Because I don't think anyone's really going to pick up Daniel Jones at all. So no matter how desperate, you should not be picking up Daniel Jones as your quarterback. So, but Jalen Daniel, the rookie going into Washington, he's definitely someone that I think a lot of people are going to have their eye on and is very intrigued with him just because of the amount of weapons that he has there with them. With Austin Eckler being there now. Brian Robinson was their main running back last year. Just had a decent season last year. But then you also have Scary Terry there and Jahad Dotson and I feel like I'm forgetting somebody else. But having those main guys there alone there is enough to where he's going to be fantasy relevant. Could be. So.
Yeah, he could definitely be relevant. He can be relevant.
But other than that, like I said, the main guys are going to be Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott in that division as far as the two best fantasy options there. So.
Well, I mean, for me, like, I couldn't think Jalen Hurts is going to take a step back. That's what I'm saying. I think he's going to take a step back. Because like, a lot of his fantasy appeal was that he stole so many touchdowns. Like, that's why, honestly, like, you could not keep a running back on the Eagles because they do all the work. And then, and Jalen Hurts would just, like, just scavenger away. He would just take away all the touchdowns. So with Saquon there this year, there's no reason to bring him over there and not think that, especially with Kelsey, with that center, Jason Kelsey's no longer there. It was a big part of probably that push because other teams try to do that, and I ain't gonna lie, that was a big offensive weapon for them. So that would be interesting to see if they still try to do that with Jalen Hurts. I mean, the guy squats 600 pounds, so maybe still just push the center out of the way. And so it's kind of equal size of what you're going to do, But they got two very good wide receivers on the outside. So I mean, the guy's never really thrown for like a lot of touchdowns over the last few years. Most of his stuff was kind of splits of like 15, receiving touchdowns and about 20, 25 throwing in the air. So it would be interesting to see what that offense looks like without Jason Kelsey in the middle and with Saquon there, and how maybe they might utilize Saquon out the back a little bit more, and he still kind of steals some touchdowns in that way and through the air instead of just running up the middle and just. I mean, they would run like 6 or 7 yards with the quarterback sneak, which is insane. So he would steal so many touchdowns from all their running backs. So that'll be interesting. But I mean, he's still someone that I think is going to get drafted like in the top 10 in fantasy because he's going to give you still that value. Maybe not as much as he did like the past few years though.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Hurts will go like top 10 wise. I mean, he's definitely going to be one of the top quarterbacks taken. But you have to expect, because of Saquon being there, last year he had 15 rushing touchdowns. That's definitely got to take a big dip back. I wouldn't be surprised if he dropped back down to like 7 or 8 rushing touchdowns instead of. It's going to be hard for him.
But that's why. But that's why I think. But I also think that's why he goes through the air. So I think he starts. I think he's probably like there might be something that I lost the arm a little bit. You know what I mean? Because with Devontae Smith and with AJ Brown on the outside, I think it gets closer to 30 touchdowns through the air and maybe not run so much, but even I mean with those bubble screens and the stuff like that, they can probably do with Saquon because I see him. Saquon is still maybe not the tier as McCaffrey, but he does a lot of the same things, and so it's a make or break for the Eagles because they finished horrible last year. So their head coach is definitely gonna have to figure some stuff out.
Yeah, and I agree. So, and here, Crazy Ace, the Eagles still need to use Hurt's strength, but they need a new offensive game plan. So, yeah, which is true.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point exactly. Yes.
So that's the if his rushing touchdowns dip, but his receiving one or throwing touchdowns go up. It won't hurt as much. I mean, he had 23 last year. If he gets to 30, that'll definitely, like I said, be shattering his record there. And as long as the yards can stay somewhat there as well, I don't think it'll be as bad of a dip. But his interceptions hopefully don't go up anymore. He had about 15 last year. So, I mean.
Yeah, 15. That's the one downside is him throwing more. He didn't throw a lot last year, and he didn't make the decision making is there. So, I mean, I still see him as like a viable top 10, like fantasy wise, maybe not top 10, when it comes to team or NFL wise, but still, like I mean, if he's got 28, 29 touchdowns and has 8 or 9, rushing ones, and it gives you about 20, 25, especially those games when he blows up and has 2 or 3, sneaks one, and probably takes a couple from Saquon. I see him still having a couple 30-point games out of the year. So the offense is like the Eagles head coach definitely doesn't want to look as bad as he did at the end of the year last year. They had such a horrible run in last year. He wants to look back and be that guy who made the Super Bowl. So I think obviously with Saquon there and future Jalen Moore, I think probably he's still someone I wouldn't like scoff at and think like he's done.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting with the Crazies. I wouldn't start Hurts, but I definitely take him as a number 2. I think Hurts is a number 1 starting QB. I mean, if you have him as a backup or someone that you're trading off with, then your team.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, if you have Jalen Hurts as someone on your bench, then I would love to be in your league. I mean, that would be insane. I mean, honestly, because the last 2 years, people are still going to draft him. Like I'm saying, like I'm not going maybe top 15. And I'm talking about QB, not top 10 or top 15, like in your draft. Not going around the but I'm saying like he's gonna because obviously you're gonna have the top 4 or 5 is going to be the Mahomes, the Jacksons, everybody else, and there's other QBs that are going to go ahead of him, but I can still see him being like the top 10 QB coming off the board in your draft, in respective draft leagues, that's someone, and if he's your QB1, it's not going to kill you if he's still giving you 20, 25 points, because I think the offense has way too many weapons with Saquon there to not see him giving you 20, 25 points on every given Sunday. So
I think there's really no reason for him not to break 4,000 yards this year passing. Sure he was at
I agree with Kate. Yeah.
If they continue to throw the ball in the air, he should definitely eclipse that. I think he had 3, maybe 4 300 yards passing games last season. So if he can get a few more of those and have more 300-yard games, those are add for bonus points. Some leagues give bonus points once players get to.
I just think that depends on what team shows up. Is it the team that was 10-0 and they were flying high, or is it the team that fell off the face of the earth? Because if it's that team that was the second half, he's going to get dropped the first few weeks if you do draft him. So that does. But he has all the opportunity there. He has offensive head coach. You know what I mean? He has a bunch of weapons. They just went, paid a bunch of money to Saquon. But like I said, the head coach wants to look smart, and the best way is to make sure Jalen Hurts looks like your QB. So He's going to get an opportunity, and that's my point. I mean, he's going to get drafted. They're going to push it, and if he doesn't, then
Yeah, and I
you
think
can draft his ass and go get somebody else.
more weeks often than not, you're going to be starting Hurts, even if it's not the greatest matchup. I really typically you don't have that much of a better option, either just to pick up free agent wise or
Yeah.
unless I mean we've been in some drafts where guys have gone back to back rounds with QBs, and
Yeah.
drafted two good ones. So I mean it's certainly within the realm of possibilities though.
Yeah.
But
I mean, definitely never know. I mean, that's the beauty of the draft.
yeah, with weapons around him and a new OC, Hurts should finish top 4 and 12 in fantasy. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. That's what I agree. I agree with. Like he
now
has
do you
too many
think he'll
weapons
be
on the
better?
outside to not
Do you think he'll
be
be the
viable.
top? Think he'll be the top fantasy QB in that division, or do you think Dak Prescott is going to continue on? Because Dak is obviously
I mean,
had
that depends on what city. Honestly, it depends what city you have there. For Dak. I mean, the guy threw for 30 plus touchdowns and you know, over 4,000 yards. So I mean, like it's not like I was saying Dak Prescott became kind of scrub. The
no,
Cowboys are going
yeah,
to be good. They're going to be relevant, and so I mean, Dak Prescott, and obviously Dak Prescott wants to be a $60 million man. So, and he holds he is in the best place in the NFL right now. As long as he does not get hurt, Dak Prescott is going to. Honestly, I hate the Cowboys, but I would probably draft him just because. You know, what I mean,
even
this
in the
guy
year
wants
that he
to
got
ball
hurt,
the
he
fuck
still
out.
had 23 touchdowns before he got
Yeah, I
hurt.
mean,
So I
yeah,
mean,
exactly. So, I mean,
normally getting him into the
he
30s for
I
touchdowns.
mean, I personally love seeing Dak Prescott in the playoffs, but when it comes to my fantasy league, he's definitely someone you want on your team. You know, the guy's going to throw up numbers. They're going to throw up. You know, they're gonna put up a bunch of points in Dallas. They're gonna put up a bunch of points in Dallas. You know, and Dak Prescott's definitely gonna have. He wants to shot. Dak Prescott wants to throw for 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards this year. So there's no way that he doesn't want to do that. Mike McCarthy wants to keep his job, so he might actually let him do that. So
And if
if
he
you're
does
asking
that,
me which quarterback is probably the better one to draft in a fantasy league, obviously I think it would be Dak Prescott because he's already shown the ability to throw for over 4,000 yards and throw for 30 touchdowns and and CeeDee Lamb wants to get paid, so he's gonna get paid. So
and last season he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games where he had over 300 yards. One was 299, so it was damn near right there.
yeah.
And
I
what
mean the guy
down
actually averages
touchdown?
over 20 points. So yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
fantasy points wise, he averages over 20 points a
those
game.
numbers a
So.
lot of the times he's not even one of the first QBs taken off the fantasy draft. Like
Oh,
with
and that's
those kinds of
crazy.
numbers, like he's usually like around the 5th or 6th QB taken. So I mean,
Yeah,
wins are wins NFL wise, but like fantasy wise, all you care about is the stats, really.
yeah. I mean, like I said, like you can have the Joe Burrows, the Lamar Jacksons,
Mm-hmm.
the Allens, the Mahomes. They're all going to go before him. But Dak Prescott, if he's the fifth guy and you have him on your team, he's definitely going to push your team into the top area, the top four of your fantasy league team. You're gonna be enjoying some stuff. Exactly what he's saying. But without a top tier running back, I mean, Zeke. You think Zeke's gonna come back and be Zeke? He's gonna be eating cheeseburgers and doing whatever. He's gonna be throwing the ball out. He wants to show everybody, you know, that he's worth all that money that he's probably gonna get. If not from Dallas, somebody else, obviously. But like I'm saying, Mike McCarthy wants to keep his job, and Dak Prescott wants to show everybody that he's worth all that money. So, absolutely believe that Dak Prescott's going to throw for close to 40, touchdowns because he's already shown he could go really close to that and way over 4,000 yards. So, I mean, that's a
Yeah, I
stack
mean
that I would love to see. The CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott stack, like you're going to win some games in your fantasy league.
that's what I'm saying. If he does have that kind of season, then that it's only going to mean good things for CD Lamb owners. I do like Crazy's comment here. Cowboys will always be the Cowboys while Jerry's still there. Just saying.
No, I'm okay with that. I mean, I like seeing him. I like seeing him losing the divisional round against us in the playoffs or whatever. But I mean, when it comes to fantasy, I wouldn't mind seeing Dak Prescott score 35 points a week for me. So
He says, "I'll take Dak over Hurts because of Dallas's offense." Yeah, that's more or less
that's
what
true.
we're
Yeah,
thinking too.
absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I just think it's the one of the things right there is contract year. And everybody, this is
Yes.
different.
Yes. Everybody plays at their best when it's contract year. So like, there's no. I'd be surprised if plays a whole season and struggles. That'd be a really surprise. Even though he lost Aller and some of the other guys, I don't think that's enough of a fantasy, weapons being lost for him to, take that big of a dip back.
No,
So,
no,
like
he
Jerry
has
said,
plenty
they're
of
all in.
weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, let's move
yeah.
on to the South. There's not too many options to talk about there. I think the best option there in the South, probably Baker Mayfield, you think, or what, as far as
I mean,
best fantasy
he
option?
has. I mean, as long as Mike Evans is still there, I mean that's
2,000
another.
yards last year. So, I mean,
I mean
he didn't
that's
have.
another good stack. I mean, I had Mike Evans on my fantasy team last year, and he has some good games, but he disappeared, and that's the one thing is Baker Mayfield was up and down through his whole career, and he had a career once again a contract year, and he had a career year.
Mhm.
He got paid, and now we'll see what he's like because he might revert back to old Cleveland. You know, it had a great team, and he got into a playoff, but he didn't do much after that. And then he got shipped around, and he found a home in Tampa Bay, and he had a he did a good year last year. So if Baker Mayfield can duplicate that same, you know, I think he had like almost like 28, 29 touchdowns and close to 4,000 yards. So I mean, he had good games. He had some stinkers in there, but once again, that's
He had
probably
28
someone that I might.
passes. That's decent.
Yeah, so that's someone that I might. Like I pick him up on a waiver wire type of thing. He's, I think Kirk Cousins for me is probably a little bit more attractive, just because he's showing more of a career that to have like those consistent big games. You know, maybe not in prime time because prime time Cousins is the thing, but still Cousins with Jet and everybody else in Minnesota. He had a lot of good games and he showed a lot of you know, uh, fantasy appeal when it comes to having him, on your team. But sometimes people like to wait to get a QB, to the very end. So I think those are two QBs if you want to wait to like the later rounds, the eighth or ninth or 10th round, and depending on your draft, like those guys will be there. So I mean, because when it comes down to like the top guys are always going to give you something different. But
Yeah.
and then when you start going to the middle, then it changes a lot of stuff in terms of your draft, depending on if you want to focus on wide receivers or running backs or whatever you want to do, depending on like how many people you have on your bench. So Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins, they'll still be there in the later rounds, but those guys can blow up at any given because they have weapons.
They
So
do.
they'll give
Smash
you
on
like
like
they'll
Evans.
definitely give you those. They'll definitely give you those weeks where they'll give you 25, 30 points out of nowhere, and that's just beautiful when those guys happen.
See, and that's the thing. He still had three 300-yard games, but the difference is he really didn't have that many games where he had 3 touchdowns or more. So that's where the
Yeah,
big difference comes. So he still gets the yards. It's just the touchdowns weren't as much as someone like a Dak Prescott or some of the other big name guys where Dak's normally in the 30s when it comes to touchdowns. So, but he's still, I think he's one of those guys. Baker's one of those guys where if you did wait on a QB, he's probably someone that you could live with, but more often than not, you should not expect any more than about. He's probably going to average around anywhere from 20 to 22 points a game, fantasy
yeah,
wise.
That's like, you might get surprised every once in a while, but he's
Yeah,
definitely someone that's a free agent pickup or like if you're like just hurting for a QB at the end of the draft, right before you pick your defense and your kicker, unless you're crazy, you want to pick a kicker in the 6th round. So I've seen that happen too, but I mean,
yeah. He didn't do too well that season. So
yeah, I mean, but if Baker's still there in the 9th round, I mean that's and you never know because depending if you have a 10 or 12 team league, sometimes you might gamble on the fact of trying to get more high end bench and just kind of gamble on your QB.
Do you have any
But
interest
that's happened.
in Derek Carr at all with the Saints? His first season wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible, I should say, but it wasn't,
It's like
super.
it's like
It was pretty
it's,
average.
he's inconsistent and inconsistency in Oakland or Las Vegas. It just followed him to New Orleans. I mean, he has good games too. Don't get me wrong. Like he does some good stuff. And the problem with that too is like Michael Thomas never came back to be Michael Thomas. And like the outside, wide receivers he had never really developed, and Alvin Kamara never really came back and was Alvin Kamara. So it's harder to take him like as someone that maybe as a rental for a game if I need someone and I got so many people that are on a bye week. Yeah, I would never draft, him right outright. It was just someone that
Yeah, I
I would
mean,
just probably pick
looking
up
at
if I
his,
had to. It'd be a
looking at
matchup type of thing. It'd be like a matchup it was a week like I felt like he was playing Carolina. I was like, I'll pick him up. Type of thing.
there you go. There you go. I mean, they're looking at his game logs. He had 4 games last season where he had 0 passing touchdowns, and that's just like that's brutal. Like if you started him in one of those games, and there's a few of those games. What 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games where he didn't even break the 200-yard mark passing.
Yeah.
So he really doesn't give you much to like encouragement. Like if you draft him and hoping that he's going to be the guy, you must have like a fortune teller telling you something that the rest of us don't see. So
I'm telling you, it's like you got a bookie that wants you to freaking hit big. So, but other than that, like I said, if it's Carolina, maybe if it's a different team out there that he's playing that you feel good about. But to be honest, right now, like there's not really much going on in the South when it comes to drafting the QB.
I agree with you, Chef. It says never draft a kicker, can always find the top 10 one in free agent list.
I agree with you too, but I've seen kickers go pretty early in a few drafts in a few years. We do live drafts, so
Justin Tucker.
so I mean, yes, I mean like when you're doing drafts on your laptop or on your phone, whatever, and stuff gets chosen for you is different. But sometimes a live draft, you never know. It's like we've seen it already a few times in our drafts, so that people just get antsy and just be like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna take Justin Tucker. Or I'm gonna take Butker or whoever the hell they're gonna take."
Yeah.
Way earlier than we would think.
So I'll just get a kicker.
Yeah, I've seen defenses fly. I've seen kickers fly.
So if you had a gun to your head, you had to choose between either Derek Carr or Bryce Young. Like, which one would you? I know. That's what I'm saying. It's not a. You're forced.
Okay, hold on. How many bullets are in the gun? like, do I get it spinning like Russian roulette, or like do I just fucking click the button? Because I'm pretty much gonna die with either one of these assholes. Like they're pretty much gonna. Like my fantasy team is gonna be fucked if I got those guys on my QB1, and then more than one time. No.
Any chance that Bryce Young can have like somewhat better season than he did last season? I mean, he only threw 11 touchdowns last season and barely 2,800 yards. So I mean, like it has to go up from here, right? Like,
well, no, because they didn't do much for him. Like, I mean, to be honest, Bryce Young he's in purgatory, and I just want to see this kid. I want to see him get shipped out of Carolina. Is what I want to see. It's like that. It's a horrible organization. It's a horrible place for him. It was horrible for him. It's like the epitome of like the worst place to go as a QB. First overall pick. Expectations are high. Ex Heisman, everything else coming from Alabama. All the big times games he played, and he goes to literally the most worst run organization in football.
right.
Like I mean, the owner is fighting with fans. So like. I mean, honestly, I don't see it get any better for him. I hope he doesn't get washed out of the league. I just honestly, there is no reason to talk about Carolina.
I agree. There really isn't much, but I was just curious on who you would pick there if you had to choose between those two shit options. So
I think I'm eating a fucking bullet. I think I'm eating a bullet. Is what's going to happen after those two options. Like, fuck.
It's like I just give you my money and forfeit the season.
Fuck, I'm done. I'd rather have the 4-year-old. I already had my 4-year-old. I already had my 4-year-old go over here and draft my season if that's the case.
Shit, that would be my excuse. There, is my kid drafted it for me. But the last team there in the South is the Falcons with Kirk Cousins. He's obviously, we talked about him a little bit in prior episodes. He's coming to the new team here with Atlanta. He's got a shit ton of weapons. I think there's no reason for him to get at the very least 3,500 passing yards as long as he stays healthy. He has just as good as weapons there as he did in Minnesota. So, I mean, if he can stay healthy, he should be one of those guys where he should be a decent starter if you had to, and you kind of have to live with the games where he maybe has only like 15 points. But more often than not, he's going to be a guy that gets you around 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah, I know. That's something we talked about before. Like, he has a history. I mean, he might not be – the team might be 9-8 or whatever, but he's still probably going to throw for 4,000 yards and get you close to like 25 to 30 touchdowns. So he's definitely someone that if you need – you might not get drafted because you never know what's going to happen to a new team, especially with that, the injury that he had was pretty bad. And he's an older person. He's an older guy. He's definitely a veteran. So, but he has, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. He has two running backs that are both explosive and can take it to the house on anytime he touches. So the appeal is still would be very, very much there, just the way it was when he was in Minnesota. But it depends on how the team is, and he could be one of those guys like I talked about last week, like Herbert, that their team is gonna be fighting like behind a lot. You know what I mean? A fourth quarter game, so he might have like 10 points in the first three quarters, and then throw for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. He's someone that's done that a lot in his career when it comes to fantasy. I've seen it because I've had him on my team. So I've seen him go from 8-9 points to like 25 real quick. So I mean, I think he's one of those kind of wait and see type of guys. I don't think he'll get drafted right off the bat, but I definitely see him someone as you pick up in the free agency, especially if you need him in those middle weeks when everybody starts hitting bye weeks and stuff like that, and you need a quarterback. I mean, because people will just pick him up and just put him on their bench just to put him there, and see what he does later. So, and you also want to think about if you have a spot, someone goes in the IR, and you have a roster spot, just pick him up and put him there because he definitely has a track record. So, and he's got a absolute hungry young team there that wants to do good. So, the Falcons are poised to make a jump, especially in the week south.
Yeah, if they don't do it here, it'd be kind of a oddly disappointing season for them overall as far as what they invested into this season. But if it doesn't happen, then I guess that means it's a really quick cook for him, and they have Penix Jr. waiting in the wing. So they really do have pressure on Cousins to produce right off the bat. It doesn't seem like they're giving much of a leash there. So.
Absolutely.
We're about halfway through. Let's go ahead and take a quick break and pay some bills.
Listen, shout out to my man Terrence from Chicago's Clubhouse podcast, from the Moore's Brewing Company here in Chicago, Illinois. All right, we got bros out here putting out this for the Moors. It's tasty. I didn't even have to come on here and lie about this. All right, this tastes like what I like when I drink a beer. I don't drink a beer often because I'm too big and I need to stay off of carbonated drinks. But this is the carbonated drink you need to open up and crack and take a sip. All right, if you want to come out of the dark ages, be educated. All right, get you some of this Moore's brew right here. It's definitely tasty. You can get it in Kimbark and High Park.
Whoa. I thought we were a team. Where's mines? And when are we getting in Tempe, Arizona?
I guess we're going to have to find out, man. But everybody out there, for here in Chicago, go to Kimbark and pick you up some Moore's.
Hey, and we'd like to thank our sponsor, Moore's Beers, and all our other sponsors that we have, Vision and In the Zone as well. So now that that's out of the way and you're all rehydrated again, let's finish this off and talk about, let's do your division first here and talk about your boy, Brock Purdy here. I know the last you definitely get drafted, but then even last year, people were a little hesitant.
Yeah. They thought he was a fluke, flash in the pan type of thing. But I mean, last year he did something. He did something that is historic for Niners. He had 2 touchdowns. Like almost like 10 games in a row. I think it was. But he had like a ridiculous run there, and he has the weapons out there for him to. Even though the ball gets spread around and McCaffrey takes a lot of touchdowns around the goal line away, he actually feeds McCaffrey a lot. To get those easy to. So he gets a lot of 2 or 3 touchdown games, and he's efficient with what he does. It's crazy too because he might be 20 for 30 for like 289 or 285 whatever, and 3 touchdowns, which is 25, 30 points in fantasy, which is perfect. Because that's pretty much what you would love to see your quarterback is to just give you 25 plus points every week, and that's like, he was one of the most consistent fantasy people of last year throughout the league when it came to whatever wide receiver, running back, tight ends, whatever it could be. It was pretty much he had a couple of bad games, and the Baltimore game was horrible. But so if you had him in your fantasy league when he threw 5 interceptions, that was a horrible game. But the rest of the time, he was doing pretty dang good for you. You're getting 20 plus points, and those games where he was blowing up, giving you 300 and 3 touchdowns. Getting 28 to 35 points is a beautiful thing for your QB1. So I think he's
a solid game.
I definitely see him. I definitely see him in the top 15. I see him in the top 15. I won't put him in top 10, even though he's my guy. But he's definitely someone that's going to be in the later rounds. That he's going to be one of the QB. I think he'll get drafted this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I think part of the issue with last year, if I remember correctly as well, where some teams were hesitant, was he still had Trey Lance there as well. Everybody was still he was coming off an injury, like towards the end of the season, the previous season. He kind of got hurt, and people were wondering if he was going to be the starter for week 1, and whatnot. But as
that elbow was big. The elbow was big.
The season it became more clear that he was going to start, and I think shortly after, a few weeks later, Lance got traded to Dallas, and then it became not even a question of like who's going to start. So, and you're right. Purdy, he had a solid season. He had some decent games. He had 3 games where he had 4 touchdown games. So and those were the games where he crushed it. He had about 3 or 4 games where he had over 300 passing yards as well. So, I mean, he definitely was consistent for the most part. Like you said, there was an occasional game or two where he only had a touchdown and whatnot, and he didn't completely blow up. But a lot of that has to do with the Shanahan offensive scheme and stuff. And I think now, though, with his 3rd year in this offense, he should be trusted a lot more. And I wouldn't be surprised to take another step as far as total passing touchdowns. I know he had 31 passing touchdowns last season and over 4,000 yards, but it could definitely tick up a few more and get to like 35, 36. So if he does that, he's making another Pro Bowl. So.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Relevant became relevant real quick. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the only other option there in that division or good option there, it would be Matt Stafford. But he's another guy that's still not getting drafted. He's because of his age, he's obviously on his way out, but he still has some pretty decent games for being, in his high 30s there. So 36, I think he is. So
I mean, he's not too far removed from winning the Super Bowl himself. And the guy, I mean, the arm isn't going anywhere. I mean, he can't move around. He's a statue, but you got Cooper Kupp and you got Puka out there now, and you got Tutu Atwell. And, they drafted, Blake Corum with the Williams. They have weapons, and they weren't a team that was supposed to be in the playoffs last year, and they made it because y'all kind of jailed at the end of the year. So it'd be interesting what that team does in the beginning of the year, but they definitely have some fantasy weapons on the outside that, I mean, it doesn't matter if you have Puka or Cooper Kupp on your team. I think they both got enough, juice to throw the ball around and do whatever. Only thing that scares me is that Matthew Stafford didn't throw for a lot of touchdowns, So fantasy-wise, that kind of did suck. Because I had Puka on my team, and he would have 10 catches for 130, but no touchdowns. So he would kill my fantasy game because he he had like 13 points, 14 points, 15 points, but he'd never give me that touchdown. He would never give me that touchdown. So I mean, that's the only thing that kind of bothers me. But Cooper Cup was not there for most of the year last year. So I mean, with him as a healthy person there, and Puka coming into his second year and emerging as obvious, potential superstar. So that's I don't think that you would write off Matthew Stafford that quick. But he's definitely someone that probably won't get. He won't get. He just along the lines of like a Kirk Cousins, but I think I'd put him just a little above because obviously he's not hurt. He's not. And he's definitely got the same type of weapons.
Yeah, they do have those weapons. I think if Stafford stays, the touchdowns he needs to go up this season to have more relevancy in the fantasy world there, because if he stays around there, like around 24, like he did last season. He's kind of more of a backup guy. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to start, but just if you have him on your bench and keep him, you can play the matchup game with him and like another kind of backup guy. It's just
the appeal of the fact that, like, I always look at someone like the weapons that he has, like, and how are they used. Like, if you can get Puka and Cooper Cup to both catch 100 balls a year and just mix in some actual touchdowns in there, I mean. If Matthew Stafford is throwing for 300 plus yards and 2 touchdowns a game, that could be a sneaky pick, that no one wants to have, or if you sit on your bench, in the later rounds, because he's definitely not someone that's going to get picked up very soon. So if he's a free agent and you use this there, and you have a wide receiver or a running back who's not doing very much, and you just want to pick him up just to have him, he might be a great freaking trade chip later in the years.
Yeah, especially if the Rams' offense starts blowing up. And someone's main quarterback goes down, you might be able to get a decent either receiver or a decent running back, depending on what you need from him. So, I mean,
he's fantasy sucks.
Stash in your back pocket just in case an emergency break glass.
Exactly, because fantasy sucks. People go down when you don't need them to. Like the next week, all of a sudden, you can catch someone desperate. So he's someone definitely that you've got a wide receiver who's not doing shit. You just want to pick him up and throw him on there, and then all of a sudden you have a couple good weeks in a row where they had a decent run last year at the end of the year. But if you put 4 or 5 games in a row and he looks freaking hot, you might be able to sneak a freaking something that you need for a lot cheaper than you would have did before.
Yeah. So the only other quarterbacks there that I think that's going to be worth drafting is Kyler Murray. There is Geno Smith there, but I just don't see enough meat on that bone for people to really justify drafting him on their team. There's just too many better options on there. Even though he does have some decent weapons on his team, just the fact that Kyler Murray has that rushing ability still, that kind of gives him that slight edge to where you would think about drafting him to kind of have him get, if he gets 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns and continue to be Kyler Murray that he was the previous season, before he got hurt, then
I think Kyler Murray's more of a wait and see type of player. I mean, some Cardinal fans might draft him just because, because they think Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the, something to unlock him. But until you wait and see if he's going to stay healthy himself and how the chemistry evolves, because you never know how that's going to work. He's still a rookie, but I mean, rookies come in a lot more polished, especially the wide receiver position than they have in the past, few years. So I mean, he might come in and blow up, but Kyler Murray has to show the ability to actually be consistent. Like the first few years, he was definitely a big time, fantasy player because of those, rushing touchdowns and the ability to go down the field and make some big plays. But he hasn't really shown the ability to stay healthy or to sustain that throughout the year, and that's the problem. He's, the back half of the year, he's always falling off as any type of relevant QB at the end of the year when it comes to fantasy. So, I mean, when you need him the most to make a playoff run and to make a playoff push, Kyler Murray ends up, either getting hurt or just not playing very well.
Yeah, well, he missed a good portion of the beginning of last season because he was coming off that ACL injury. I think week 10 is when he finally started getting on the field. So along with him trying to get his football legs underneath him and then learning a new offensive system as well since Kingsbury had moved on. So he didn't have any 300-yard games at all. He only had one game where he had 3 passing touchdowns, and that was the second to last game of the season. And then rushing wise, like because he was coming off that injury, you could tell he was a bit hesitant. He really didn't even have that many rushing attempts. He only had 3 rushing touchdowns, but really didn't come close to breaking 100 yards at all running the ball instead. So him having the second year now in that offense, he should hopefully grasp it a bit better. Like I said, I think the one target, like you said, he may lean on heavy is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. and maybe the tight end McBride. So
yeah, I think McBride's a stud. McBride is a stud. He is going to be in the top 5 of tight ends. I'm telling you right now, that guy is someone that if you don't get Andrews or Kittles, or Kelsey, I would definitely take that kid. That kid is someone right now. Mark my words right now. He's gonna be a Pro Bowler. He's gonna show up because he's gonna be a huge security blanket for Kyler Murray because they have nothing else on the outside. They have nothing else on the outside besides Marvin Harrison, and someone else has to catch the damn ball. that kid, I'm gonna draft him. If I get a chance, he's definitely coming off my board. So
well, that's good to know. So I'll make sure to snipe you right before.
Yeah, fuck you. But either way, because like. I definitely see that coming in the future for him.
Well,
I'm gonna punch it. I'll punch you in the dick if you fucking take him from me in the future too.
Hey, dude, you can always trade him for me. Like you can do a trade. So
I'm gonna trade you this beer can, fucker.
Well, the last division, my favorite division there, the NFC North. We have a few intriguing QBs here. Jared Goff was the leading receiving QB passing yards last season. So do you think he'll be able to duplicate that again? He had 4,500 passing yards and about 30 touchdowns. So it's one of the better fantasy QBs in the league last season. But Jordan Love, I think, unfortunately, he came on strong at the end of last season. He really started grasping the offense, started feeling more comfortable with his receivers. He might be the dark horse best QB in that division. So unfortunately, that kills me to say that being a Bears fan. As much as I wanted to be Caleb Williams, him being a rookie, it's just not. It's really wishful thinking to think he's going to do it his first year.
I mean, to be honest, like I think Jared Goff probably. That team, well, the whole division kind of scares the shit out of me because anybody in that division is probably the only real threat to the Niners when it comes to actually making a Super Bowl run. And we went through both of those teams in the playoffs, and after should have lost to both of those teams, and it's because of both those QBs. I mean, they both have ridiculous weapons on the outside. They're both, capable of throwing up 350 to 400-yard games at any given time. Jared Goff has shown to be that number one that he got drafted on, and the Rams, for whatever reason, they punted on him and they got Stafford and they won a Super Bowl. But Jared Goff didn't put his head down. He went to Detroit and all he's done is, put his hard hat on over there in Detroit. And I'm just saying Raw is definitely the go-to man over there. So him not getting to close to the same amount of numbers, I absolutely see that. I think he's someone that is even a better option than a Matthew Stafford or a Kirk Cousins or anything like that when it comes to someone that you want to draft at the back end of the draft if you do want to wait. Because they do have weapons and they have the running backs to also get those cheap touchdowns on the back end and do things like that. I think Jordan Love is someone that it'd be interesting to see what he does in the beginning of the year. I think that kid came down that backstretch on such a fucking heater. It's ridiculous to see if he continues that type of progression. Matt LaFleur might have finally unlocked his own offense and didn't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers doing his own thing anymore, and might have found it like his QB in the future. But that would be interesting to see in the first, I think, 2 to 3 weeks of Jordan Love is the truth. So I think he's someone that will be like a CJ Stroud that is absolutely going to come off the board early, and someone that was going to be a hot pick in the early rounds of once the QB start coming off the board. It depends on what happens. Could be the first or second round to the damn fourth or fifth round, depending on how your draft runs. If you're doing it online or if you're doing it live, but
Right.
he's definitely someone that's going to come off the board. And I mean, the kid threw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns himself. So,
Yep.
and most of that was at the end of the year. There were questions at the beginning of the year if what he was doing and stuff like that. He had some good games, but he still got lost. But at the end of the year, he definitely locked something there. And the rest of that team is young. So the big thing is they got to stay healthy. Like they have some pretty good wide receivers in Green Bay. And now with Josh Jacobs there in Green Bay too, that's a whole nother level that can lock Jordan Love on a different level. So I mean that's something that Jared Goff has in Detroit with I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be he's going to be pushing Montgomery out the way pretty soon. So I think that those two teams are definitely going to be interesting. I think those two QBs are going to be definitely interesting. No matter if your fan base is any of those two teams, you're going to enjoy this year. And if you're a fantasy league, I think you have any of those guys and you pick them up, depending on the league you can, I think you're going to be doing okay too.
Yeah, I think Love showed, like, since week 10, there was only one game where he didn't have at least 2 touchdowns. So towards the end of the season, he was pretty consistent as you can be on there. So he finished with over just 4,100 passing yards and over 30 touchdowns. So, I mean, it's fantasy-wise, it's really not that bad of a season at all. I think it's very in the realm of possibility for him to put up Jared Goff numbers as far as passing yards. And then, if he gets 4 or 5 more touchdowns and finishes with 37, he's going to be a top 10 fantasy QB right there. So,
and it'll be interesting because he didn't have a bad running back last year, but they were kind of, like Dylan and what's his name? They went to Minnesota. They weren't healthy, and then they got healthy end of last year, and then it boosted his numbers. I mean, Josh Jacobs is 1 year removed from being the rushing leader of the NFL. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how they use Josh Jacobs in that offense and how that they could kind of piggyback off because they're both young. See how that they piggyback and just push each other even further up. I mean, I don't like it, but I think those two teams are going to be fighting for 12 to 13 wins. And that's going to be because the QB is going to be throwing for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns in the middle of those games. So, I mean, to be honest, I do think that Jordan Love is going to be. I think Jordan Love's going to be more sexy to pick, but I think Jared Goff is not someone you want to sneeze at or sleep on either.
So, if they were both there on the board and you needed a QB, you would lean more towards Goff than Love.
I would take Love only because. I like Jacobs in that offense. I like Jacobs in the offense. I mean, I like Jahmyr Gibbs and I like what they're doing over there. But I just think that there's another level that Love hasn't shown yet that could possibly be unlocked. Now, does it happen? I don't know. So it's one of those little things that Jared Goff has a little bit more of a track record. He's shown it over the past few years that he can. Be more consistent when it comes to actually, because no one even talks about him. This is crazy. And the guy's, had these 4,000 yards, before, and he's had, pretty good offensive years. He just is an afterthought for whatever reason. The guy was a former number 1 pick, and you just think about like, oh well, Jared Goff, whatever, because he was assistant quarterback. Yeah, he was assistant quarterback in St. Louis or LA when he was, with McVay. And over here, it just kind of seems like he grew up a little bit. He's a veteran now, and he's done, the homework obviously to get better, and done what he needs to do to become a better quarterback. So when it comes to fantasy league, I mean, when you got that Jameson outside, he has weapons in the outside to make him very, very attractive to get you that 20, 25 points that you want. And then that's always the number. You want that 25 plus. You want that 25 plus when it comes to the QB. Now if you can get the 30, 35, 40 point games. You can smash your freaking opponent. Yeah.
So, the last 2 QBs in that division here are Sam Darnold and Caleb Williams. You have one that's a brand new rookie coming into league. Both of them are coming in to a team that have a shit ton of weapons. Chicago has some newer weapons in adding Keenan Allen and DeAndre Swift. With Minnesota, JJ's been there already. I mean, they have a new one in Aaron Jones, but for the most part, Sam Darnold having NFL experience, he should have somewhat of a decent season. I mean, he has. If he doesn't do it with these weapons, or show that he can be a serviceable QB with guys like JJ and some of the other weapons around him, and TJ Hawkinson, then it may not show that he just can't do it anywhere in the NFL. It's kind of.
I mean, that's crazy. Like for me, like I still wouldn't. I mean, he has had good games, good runs. He did it with the New York Jets. He's done with Carolina. He had good runs, but I still don't see him sustaining stuff. Like that division has got super tough. Like literally, like it went from like one of the worst divisions to like this top heavy with just Minnesota, kind of just taking over for a while, and then everybody else caught up real fast. And so like Minnesota took a big step backwards. Losing Kirk Cousins, I think, really hurts them. Because Sam Darnold will step in there and make everybody else relevant around him, maybe, but I still wouldn't. Sam Darnold's going to be in a free agent pool. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, Jet got paid, so hopefully he's just hoping he gets the ball. Addison, like you said earlier, we were talking about it. He just got arrested, so like Lord knows what's going to happen with him when it comes to the player conduct. Yeah, he's going to miss some games. You don't know how many games, but the player conduct rule, depending on how bad the DUI was and how bad, I mean, I've never really heard anything bad about him before, so he might get lucky and just get a game or two, not be like a complete death sentence, get like 4 or 5 games or 6. So that might be honestly, it might be like the worst thing in the world. But Aaron Jones, I think, will be a huge upgrade from what they had last year. Addison or Mattison, whatever the hell his name is, I don't know how to pronounce it, but they just never had a real running game after Cook left. After Devin Cook left, they couldn't do much behind it. And so maybe Aaron Jones, he was one of the ones that came on last year for Green Bay and made some impact. So if that helps them out there, maybe somewhere down the line. But I think honestly, he's someone that he might be a matchup type of guy, like a Baker Mayfield, like I said. If he's playing. If he's playing Carolina too, I'll take him too.
Aaron Jones will be interesting to see if he can be able to stay healthy. I don't think he's really had a full healthy season in quite a while. So I mean, if it's one of this season he has stays healthy and plays the whole season or relatively the whole season, that'll be a big surprise. So and it's going to be needed for Sam Darnold. He needs a solid running game to kind of take that pressure off of him. So just like any QB, you put pressure on him, and he starts seeing ghosts out there, like he was saying again. Then he's going to be struggling.
I got a question. I got a question for you. Like, so obviously you're a Bears fan, but who realistically do you see if you're in a position to either draft Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels? Like, who would you take? Like, like realistically, like if it was your pick coming up and you haven't QB yet, you already solidified everything else in your draft, like. And if it comes down to one of those 2 guys, because everybody else that you might have talked about have been gone. Like, I get it. You might want to take your boy, but who do you think will have the better year?
Man, that's gonna be tough. I think it'll be close, but I still will go with my boy Caleb. Just because
hold on. Let's do another bet. I'm just asking this because let's do another bet. So, who do you think is, like, if anybody in the league, who do you think is offensive rookie of the year? Like anybody else besides these 2 guys, then it's a null and void. But I'll take Jaden Daniels as the offensive rookie of the year, and you take Caleb Williams as offensive rookie of the year. We'll put it that. Another case of beer. Okay. Put that out there. Yeah. I mean, now if someone else shows up, I mean, like Marvin Harrison Jr. or somebody else comes out of nowhere and then takes it, then that's fine. But I like Jaden Daniels.
Like that'll be a wash.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever. Whoever comes up. I mean, obviously, if the rookie comes off your team, that's fucking a dick move with a juicy or something like that. But whatever. But that means Caleb Williams probably gonna win. So, but I'm just putting it out there. That was a question I wanted to ask because obviously we got 2 top end rookies coming out of the NFC that we don't know much about how they're going to do, but they definitely got weapons around them, and so it'd be fun to see how these rookies, go because Caleb Williams didn't have the best year last year.
They're going to be compared to each other throughout their whole NFL season. The fact that they went 1-2,
absolutely,
so they're both going to teams that need a quarterback big time and have some sort of weapons already established around them. So,
and if they're playing well, like a CJ Stroud, and if they're playing like a CJ Stroud did last year, then they could obviously be both fighting for playoff position. So, that's my point. And you're going to win a reward if your team is doing good. You're probably going to win the reward. So,
hopefully that's the case. So, I do like beer and I get thirsty quite often. So, especially
hopefully not for you.
The best kind of beer is
it's free beer. Yes. Also cold ones, but if it's not cold, as long as it's free.
But no, I think Caleb Williams, the great thing that he's got going for him is he's going to be, there's no question about it, he's going to be starting week 1. He does need to sign his goddamn rookie contract. That is the only thing that's kind of holding him back, I guess, a little. Who knows? I don't know what he's really holding out for since they're pretty much on
I don't understand. I'm just saying, that's why I'm trying to steal a case of beer. I was putting it up. I'm trying to steal a case of beer. So
You bastard. But no, I think he should have a good season if he's a smart and reads the field as well as he was kind of hyped up for and praised about in college. He should have a decent season. I don't think he'll break the 4,000 yards his rookie season, but if he has anywhere close to 3,000,
he has the weapons.
28, 27.
They both have the weapons in
season.
And Keenan Allen's a beast too. So. DJ Moore.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. If he stays on the team a lot longer than just this one season. I'm hoping he does, but he may be on a prove it contract right here. And if he has a decent and builds that shows that he has good chemistry with Caleb, they may re-sign him again. But I would feel better if they can re-sign him and have him for at least one more year. Just the fact that they give up a 4th-round pick, that would make me feel a bit better. If it's a 1-year rental for a 1st-round pick, I almost rather have kept that and just drafted a new, fresh, younger receiver. And then
he's 32. It's not like he's done. He's got quit back, man.
No. It's not like he's done. He's going towards the decline of his career.
32. He just came off 100 plus catches and he even played half most of the year. He lost some time, not most of it. He lost some time.
32 goals wise. I think he's about 10-year veteran. So we'll see. Him being a Bears fan, I don't want him to have a bad season, but I'm just trying to be realistic.
I'm just being realistic and saying, shut up and whatever. You know what? I want my case of beer. I hope he fucking hurts in week 2. Fuck off.
See, that's what I was waiting for.
Yeah, I'm trying to pump you up and you're pissing me off right now, but it's okay. But I just wanted to throw that question out because we're talking about everything going on. And I want to throw in there. You last week you hit me with the little for a case of beer, so I wanted to hit you with one this year or this week. I'm sorry, but for this upcoming year. So I'll take Jaden Daniels. You take Caleb Williams, and when my guy gets a offensive rookie of the year, you'll make a case of beer.
All right. Well, I might be having 2 cases come my way here if Gardner Minshew does well and has a better season. So we'll see. So
no. My boy Herbert's gonna blow up, and Jaden Daniels gonna blow up, and I might draft one of them. So I don't need to really blow up.
Yeah, we'll see about that motherfucker. We'll see. All right, folks. Let's go ahead and wrap it up here. Mouth, any shout outs or any last minute advice or words you have for the good people out here in the fantasy football world?
No, just don't listen to this asshole. That's about it.
Now they're just going to erase everything that just happened, the conversation that just happened. Just go ahead and put that in the delete file right there. So.
Yeah. It's because in a few weeks, it's just going to get real, and we're not going to talk anymore about what the fuck strategy would earn because I don't want to take any of my people anymore. I already get enough information from McBride.
Let me meet your strategy. I've won championships before. You're still searching.
Shut up. Yeah, you know what? You won it like 10 years before I showed up. Shut up, asshole. When's the
All
last
right,
time you did a
well,
Super Bowl?
if you're lucky, I'll see you in this fantasy Super Bowl. So,
Yeah, if you're lucky.
hey,
All
they
right.
call you the gatekeeper for a reason.
That's a different league, fucker.
Everyone, I want to thank you all on the behalf of the Mouth, and myself, the Cricket Commish. We want to thank you all for joining us today. We really do appreciate all your
Absolutely.
comments.
Thank you, guys.
Please
Thank you for all
remember
the comments. Thank you for all the replies.
we're trying to get to 1,500 subscribers here at the Chicago Clubhouse Network. So if you can, please like and subscribe. Remember, everybody, to be good or be good at it. Have a good one, y'all.
Yeah.
This has been a Chicago Clubhouse Network production.